here is a shark. You look at the fins; it's not quite the same, right? It's actually a lot of connective tissue in there. It's has a leathery feel to it when in a preserved animal, even in a live animal. It's fairly solid. It's not a membrane like you see in a bony fish. And in fact, this animal have evolved to behave very similar to an airplane. That way. The fins provide some level of lift. The snout, there's a slight upturn in the snout that actually drives the head up as the fish swim. You have a very hydrodynamic body, very much like a missile. So very similar to what you see in like an airplane.
What kind of shark is this?
This is a dogfish.
Great word.
So the other thing is, you look at the tail. It's very different from the fish you just dissected. Right? You look at the fin itself is wrapped around the latter part of the tail. So this is what we call a pedicircle tail, because there's a large and a small portion to it. The large portion actually has the spine extended into it, and this is what gives the fish that propulsion that when it's swimming. So most fish, by undulating the body and whipping that tail back and forth, you're generating propulsion. And for the shark, it also helps to kind of drive the fish up in the water. Most sharks have to continually swim to get oxygen across their gills. So if they don't swim, they could potentially suffocate. There are a number of species that don't need to do this. So a nurse shark is a good example. You can find them sitting at the bottom of the ocean, and they can respire just fine sitting there. But for most sharks, they need to keep on swimming.
When they're asleep?
Most don't sleep.
Autopilot.
Okay. So that's why a lot of sharks, if they get caught in a gill net, they're going to die because they're not getting water flowing across their gills. They're just stuck there in the net.
And it's really good.
So if you look, again, one thing is, if I brush my hand this way, it feels really smooth, but you can hear when I brush the other way, it's rough. Right? And that has to do with how the scales are shaped. If you look in the fish that you just dissected, the scales are basically little half circles that are kind of overlapping each other. Here, you have almost microscopic scales that look like little tiny teeth. And the teeth helps to allow the animal to cut smoothly through the water. So people have copied this in boat hulls, where they create little teeth structure along the length of the boat so that it cuts through the water more smoothly.
And then shark fin swimsuits too.
The shark fin soup is basically they cut off the fins, mostly collagen, basically what it is. And in fact, you can some people have even sold fake shark fin soup by.
Oh no, I mean suits. Like swimsuits.
Well, you can let any kind of skin you can turn it into leather. But people have been known to catch skates and rays and sell their fins as shark fin as well. It's basically the same material. So the other thing you might notice is that here's the eyes. All sharks you'll see a pair of holes, one on either side, right behind the eye. These are called spiracles. The term spiracle just means a hole in the body wall in general. But these are remnants of gill slits that used to be there. Because the ancestors of most vertebrates, the Anatomostomata, remember, the jawed animals, the first set of gills had moved forward to form the jaw. So the gill arches that you saw in your bony fish, the ancestral fish, those first two sets have moved forward to form the jaw structure. Okay, and these holes are remnants of the previous gill slits. So they, in fact, can draw water in here and get out of the gills too. This is more common in skates and rays that are sitting on top of the ocean bottom. And to respire, to get oxygen, sharks have to send water into their mouth and out the gills. Well, if you're a skate or ray sitting on the bottom, you don't want to be sucking up sediment into your gills, so they do an alternate route. So they actually have larger spiracles behind their eyes, which sends water across the gills and out the gill slits. And so you go to the academy where they have those pools of skates and rays. Just take a look, just behind each skate or ray's eyes, you can see this big hole. And again, the gills are very similar to what you saw in your fish that you just dissected. There's a fleshy filament section. There's the gill arch right there, and then these rakers on the shark are much bigger than in your fish, and it's probably because it bites out of chunks of things, and so which means there's going to be a lot of debris, and the rakers are largely there to kind of prevent large debris items from getting across the gills. In some fish, like anchovies that are filter feeder, those gill rakers look like little really fine tooth combs, so that they actually use them to help capture food. But again, very typical of fish. You have gill arch and a gill filament. In between the two sets of gills is what?
Hearts.
The heart. And you see here, this more ventral or front chamber is more rounded. It's thicker, right? So what chamber would this be?
The ventricle.
This is the ventricle. Here are the two halves of that atrium. So here's one right here. Here's the other half. So the atrium is shaped like this, and it's kind of wrapping around the ventricle. This white membrane here is what's called a sinus venosus. That's the chamber in which blood kind of sits. Remember, blood coming back to the heart has very little pressure, and virtually has no pressure. So the blood needs to kind of pool in these different parts before it makes its way into the heart. And the sinus venosus is the last one, which blood pulls in before it enters the heart. You can see that on the shark model really nicely. And then on top of that ventricle, right here where my finger is what?
Atrium.
No.
Wait, where?
We've already seen the atrium.
No, that's
So on top of the ventricle, what's this?
Oh,
starts with an A.
What's the third structure? What's the third structure for the heart?
It is the cornus arterius.
Conus arteriosus. Okay, so this chamber in the fish has evolved into part of the ventricle in us. So where, if you look at our right ventricle, where it meets up with the pulmonary trunk, there's actually a large enlarged chamber in that ventricle there. That's our version of the conus arteriosus. Okay, so it's basically just another chamber which blood enters before it goes to the gills. Okay, so on the inside of your shark. Okay, so first of all, male or female?
Female.
Female, because in the males you have a pair of what are called claspers. So there are these extensions on the fins that look and function like a set of penis. Okay, there's a little groove in that clasper which they guide sperm into the female. So the males would insert one into the female and inseminate her that way. Okay, open up the shark here. So first thing you notice is these very large organs here. There's multiple lobes. What organ is that? Lung. Not lungs. Oh, we're looking at a fish here.
Not lungs. Gills.
Bladder.
What's the largest organ in the body?
Liver.
Liver. That's what I meant.
Okay.
Just name every.
And unlike bony fish, they don't have a swim bladder. So that means for buoyancy, they have a very large, and you feel this, it's very oily. It's a very large oily liver. So basically a lot of oils that is, remember, will float in the water. Right? So this is what helps to provide buoyancy for the shark.
So they have 2 livers then?
No, one liver. Livers are always multi-lobe, just like your liver has multiple lobes. That's why you can donate part of your liver to someone, and still it'll regenerate essentially. So what else?
It's a 3-month recovery.
This thing here used to be a little sac. It's kind of greenish.
Gallbladder.
Gallbladder. And then what's this here?
What?
It has a stomach, has a U shape here, just like in your fish and like in your pig.
Oh, I see.
Stomach, what's this wrapped around the stomach here?
Pancreas.
No.
No, the
Cecum.
pyloric cecum.
No.
Spleen.
Spleen. Just like in your pig.
Sure.
Right? Your pig is right. Your pig, the spleen is right there.
Type it up. Yeah.
So we go from the U-shaped part of my stomach to this tube here. What would this be?
The
Intestine.
Intestine. And then right where stomach and small intestine meet, I have this
That's the pelvic
Pancreas.
system.
pancreas. Okay. Location, right? You know the location. You kind of guess what it is. This is the pancreas because it's right there, stomach, intestine. Now, for a very large animal, they have a relatively short intestine. Okay. Now, it's really not that short because if you look closely, you can see all these lines here. Okay. So what's happening on the inside is there's a spiraling tube going down. So it's actually much, much longer than what you see here.
It's like a coil.
So it's more like a little spiraling staircase inside. So that provides a large surface area for digestion. Okay. Behind, or more or less sort of lateral and sort of dorsal, you see all these little balls here. Okay. It's actually used to be in an organ that is kind of shredded away here. But what do you think these little balls are?
Ovaries.
Ovaries, right? Because you're looking at a female. Okay, and so the ovaries, where the eggs are, leads to a tube. What would this tube be? Oviduct. And then where this tube expands, it becomes what?
Uterus.
The uterus. There's 2 halves, so there's 2 oviducts and 2 uteri.
So that means they can carry 2 babies at the same time.
More than 2.
7.
They actually carry several babies at the same time. So these will actually have, in a later development, in some of the specimens that we get, sometime you find little pups with their egg yolks still attached in the uterus, and the uterus is expanded to accommodate them. So what you're seeing here is probably not necessarily. This is just egg here. Look at if you look at us, right? Where would you find the reproductive structures? Right down here, right? In a fish, it's more spread out. You look on this other side, you can see another ovary that hasn't really developed. You can actually feel for some of the little eggs in there. You see, in the male, you just see just sort of a conical shaped organ. But again, testes and ovaries are basically in the same location. And then the males will have a series of little zigzagging tubes, which are the vas deferens that leads to the outside. Okay. This is a rectal gland or anal gland. And then what else is running alongside the spine?
Nerves.
Kidney. So
Ah.
you'll see this as this dark tissue on either side of the spine. That's all kidney there. So remember, it's in a fish. It's more spread out than say in us, where it's just two little bean-shaped structure. Okay, so that's your shark.
That's it.
One last thing. So here is your spine, right? Your vertebral column, and you can actually see this little cord that's in this opening here, right? So what is this? What's running through your spine?
Your nerves.
Your spinal nerve, right? So this is the spinal cord here. So each vertebrae has a little foramen, a little opening on this more dorsal side, and so all those. So let's say this is the disc on the vertebrae. On top would be an opening. So now you have a whole bunch of these lined up together. That opening forms a long tube in which the spinal cord runs through. So very, very typical of a vertebrate. Okay? So that's it for your shark.